Hey guys, welcome to my channel. Horses have always been one of my favorite things to paint and draw, so I'm excited to share with you my process for painting a realistic mane on a horse. In this case, two horses. I've been getting lots of requests for real-time videos, so this one is all real-time, no sped-up footage. Before we get into the tutorial, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss any of my new videos. And please leave me a friendly comment. I'm always looking for ways to improve my channel and bring you the best watercolor instruction possible. Okay, let's get started. For this beautiful pair of horses today, I'm going to be using a couple of key colors, Daniel Smith Indigo and Burnt Umber. I'm going to start with the horse over here on the left. Since I am right-handed, I want to work left to right. And I'm going to wet the paper inside of the horse. With hot press paper, you do have to work pretty fast because it dries really fast. It's not super absorbent. So I'm just filling that in with clean water here. I'm using my size 6 Rhapsody Kolinsky Sable round brush. This is a natural bristle brush, one of my favorites. Just holds a lot of water and disperses the paint really well. Okay, everything is glistening wet, ready for paint. So we're going to start with the first layer. This is just a watered down indigo. When you mix indigo and a little bit of brown, you get a really nice neutral gray. Because there's kind of a merging of these two shapes here between the horses' heads, I'm going to start to paint into the mane of the other horse a little bit while I'm blocking this in. Working fairly loosely here, just using quick swiping brush strokes. And I'll intensify this color as I go. You'll notice I'm leaving a little spot of light here that's poking through the mane. And the shadow of the mane comes across this horse's nose. So I'm painting in the first suggestion of that. So while this is drying, I'm going to wait for that to dry before I come back into that area. I'm going to start adding a first layer to my second horse. And in the reference photo, the mane is a little bit matted, and I'm just going to kind of smooth that out in my painting a little bit, just to help it look a little more elegant, gracefully draped across the horse. Our first layer is dry enough. We can come back and start adding some more paint. I'm going to begin by doing some detail work here in the mane. We need to darken it all over. It has this nice indigo hue to it. And so I'm going to just start with a nice dark wash of paint over the top of that initial layer. Maybe neutralize it a little bit with some brown. And then let's begin to pull that dark indigo color into the mane. I'm basically painting a rather imperfect flat wash here where the mane is. I say imperfect because I'm not too worried about it. It's not like a sky or something like that where you have to be really careful. This is a first wash because eventually I'm going to go over it with black to create the inner shadows separating the pieces of mane. And I'm going to start using the tip of my brush to just add a little bit of wispy strands of mane hair coming over the top here. We don't want that to be a flat, unnatural looking edge. So It's important to just add those little details to make it look more real. I'm negative painting around some of these strands of mane that are crossing over this horse's head from the other horse. All right, you can see how light that's already drying, but that's okay. We are going to add some black details once that's dry. If your paint isn't flowing smoothly on the paper, you probably just need a little more water. So when you see me grabbing water up here, that's what I'm doing. I'm just loosening up the paint, so to speak, so that it flows really easily on my paper. This really just takes practice and experience. There's no shortcut to learning how much water to put on your brush and on your paper. Just have to practice a lot. If you're enjoying this video and you would like to see more, click on the link in the description for my full-length, fully narrated version of this tutorial, along with my reference photo and sketch. Oh, and while you're there, grab my free guide on watercolor basics. And I'm adding new courses to my website every month. My goal is to help you take your watercolor skills to the next level. Okay, let's get back to the video. You'll notice I'm not painting these two shapes separately. I'm trying to merge them as I paint. And that's because I don't want this horse to look cut out over the top of this one. They're kind of becoming one in this image, and so it's important to paint those shapes together. Merging the mane into this shadow shape on the front of the nose. I am switching to my silver black velvet size 4 3000S round brush, and I'm going to be doing some more details in the mane and in the mouth. So that's why I'm switching to a slightly smaller brush. All right, I'm going to actually use lamp black. All right, so let's start over here and just start painting around some of the highlights in the mane. I would say don't articulate every single strand of fur, especially if you want it to look expressive. Use a broad side of your brush to create long sweeping motions that aren't so fine tipped and detailed, and that'll help balance out the shapes and the composition. I'm going to leave that highlight there. If your paper is dry enough, you can rest your hand on it to support your hand. You do want a steady hand when you're working with details like this. I'm going to take a wash and cover over this entire area just to darken it and kind of smooth it out a little bit. Not the focal point, so I don't want it to be too detailed. And darken up this mane. And then a few of them I'm just pulling down and out because they're a little longer. Let's just add another wispy of mane fur over here. I'm just going to do a wash just like I did on this side over the entire thing. I want to make sure my base layer is dark enough before I add the very, very dark details. This side, again, is going to be a little bit made up because I didn't really care for the way the shapes looked in the actual photo, so I'm going to adjust those as needed. I do want to preserve this white spot on the side of the horse. I do think that's very beautiful. And there's one strand of fur coming across. I'm just kind of moving its position on the horse, moving it down a little bit, but I'm going to put that in. Paint quickly so that no hard edge forms when you or outline something like that. All right, lovely. So let's add some details to the white side of the mane here, where the white part of our horse is in the sunlight, which actually it's almost entirely in sunlight. The mane has a yellowish cast to it. So let's just paint on some light strands of white fur over here. Not too detailed with this. Not the focal point, so don't go too detailed. And now I'm switching back to my black velvet size 4 round brush to do the details in the mane. I still have this incredibly rich mixture of burnt umber and indigo. It's just about black. And then begin adding our darkest details to the mane. Here along the ridge where the mane folds over on the other side is a very, very dark shadow. I'm beginning by blocking that in with an almost straight line. Not perfectly straight, of course, because that wouldn't look very natural. And then connecting these curving mane details up and over. Allow some of those highlighted areas to show through. Don't paint on a mane completely black. It's not going to look real. And here's where I'm modifying the design a little bit and making the mane just a little more filled in than what I see in the photo. And just overlaying this with a nice flat wash of dark gray, because as I go in with my very darkest black details, I can see overall the mane needs to go darker too, even in the highlights. So that's where adding a flat wash after it's dry can really help darken the whole thing up without losing your details that you so carefully painted. And now I'm pulling in dark black strands of mane fur. They're not perfectly straight lines, but you can just use a long swiping motion with your brush. Something you can do if you're not confident with your brush control is to take a scrap piece of paper and just test out brush strokes on that, just to see how thick and thin your brush can go. That's something you can try if you're afraid to ruin your painting, especially once you've gotten this far. Don't be afraid. You can always paint it again, and chances are if you mess it up and you have to paint it again, the second one will be even better. So there's nothing to be afraid of. Just give it your all, and if it didn't turn out like you hoped, just try it again. With every painting, you should be learning something new, practicing your skills, and just getting better and better. There's no limit to what you can accomplish. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and check out these other videos on painting realistic animals. Thanks for watching.